This is BBC Radio 4. Each summer, some of the rarest artworks in the world are auctioned off to the highest bidder. The auctions attract an international audience of dealers, investors and collectors. The sales act as a barometer of the art market, and the heady mix of high art, high society and high prices is ever fascinating. Miranda Sawyer now goes behind the scenes as London's oldest fine art auction house, Christie's, prepares for their busiest sale season of the year.
At £12 million, £13 million, £14 million, at £14 million, £15 million, £500,000, £16 million, £500,000.
Last chance at £26 million.
I'm on Piccadilly, walking down St James's to London's oldest fine art auction house, Christie's. President of Christie's Europe, UC Pilcannon, will be the auctioneer for the most high-profile auction of the year, the Impressionist Evening Sale.
Well, we're 8 weeks away from the sale, and I'm looking at visuals of all of the major works that we will be offering for sale. They include wonderful Dali, tremendous Otto Dix, which previously hung in a museum collection, wonderful Giacometti sculpture, tremendous Van Gogh, the Blue Period Picasso, wonderful Matisse from an American collection, great Magritte. There are things here that we haven't seen for many, many years and that collectors will be delighted to have a chance at bidding for in June, but we will have to get ourselves prepared.
Artists whose market values have stood the test of time will always be a solid investment.
You have the very rich competing with one another for the very best.
Lot 16 is next. Monet. Le Bassin au Nymphéas, showing on my right over the telephones, your left.
Christie's last sold a Monet Nymphaeus, or Water Lilies painting, just before the crash in 2008. It made headlines around the world.
22,500,000 near me. Pounds, guineas, dollars, 22... What are we?
A work by the French impressionist Claude Monet from his Water Lilies series has been sold tonight for £40 million at Christie's in London. The price it reached set a new world record for Monet.
After 2 years of recession, the art market is far less stable or predictable, and for Christie's the pressure is on to launch this season with a bang and produce the record prices which make the headlines.
It's perceived that the art market is coming out of some form of dip. In fact, the heartbeat remained pretty consistent. There have been a few murmurs.
At the bottom of the recession, we saw that people really weren't willing to let go of their works because they didn't trust the market. There was no guarantee that your work would sell at the price that you wanted. We found that people were still willing to pay for absolute top quality, but the middle quality was much more difficult.
Recently, people have decided that if they want to, liquidate, this is the time to do it. Other people are buying, and I'm sure that's the fact that, what is your money doing in the bank? Well, not a lot. Why not put it into art?
The day before the press launch for this Water Lilies painting, I met Giovanna Bertazzoni and Jay Vince from the Impressionist team.
There is quite a lot of excitement about this sale that we're putting together. Some of the low estimates is up to £163 million.
It seems to me to be completely exceptional, is that right?
It is pretty exceptional. We've been very lucky. I think the two pieces that came in towards the end were the Klimt that is behind us and this Monet. I've known the Klimt for several months. I had done a condition report, I had photographed it, I had studied it, always hoping that at some point we would have it for auction. I saw the Monet only recently.
So how would you go about preparing this painting for sale?
We establish, first of all, that everything that we have in the cataloguing is correct, because we're liable. And it's also very important to date it, because it changes the estimate a lot.
OK, so here we have signed and dated Claude Monet 1906, check.
Yes.
Oil on canvas, even I can recognise that.
Indeed.
This one has an estimate of between 30 and 40 million pounds. Mm-hmm. A snip.
The other Nymphéas sold for 41 million, so I think that it's a correct estimate.
And where was it before? It says a distinguished private collector.
It was in a distinguished private collection.
Indeed. In a distinguished private home.
Exactly. 2 owners, and that's it, in 104 years, which is amazing.
Makes it sound like a car.
Careful lady owner.
Exactly. And why have they decided to sell? I mean, what if you are a distinguished private collector, what brings you to sell something like this?
I think in general there are as many reasons for selling as there are pictures in the sale.
Christie's maintain an ongoing relationship with many collectors, and this strictly confidential information is instrumental in organising a sale.
It always feels from the outside as though these works of art crop up every 6 months and then are scheduled for a sale, and the whole history of dealing with the family over 3 or 4 generations is sort of lost to the general public, and we very rarely can discuss it.
Photographer Philip Brakefield visits private collections to document works coming up for sale.
Going to private collections is best. Just look around the walls and you go, wow. I've been to huge country houses owned by aristocracy, and they say, well, we've got to go out, we'll be back in a couple of hours, is that all right with you? So there's a lot of trust involved. I've been shown into the basement and not allowed to see anything in the house, and I've been searched going into people's houses and searched going out of people's houses. It's a fascinating job. I mean, you get to see amazing collections and amazing places.
Christie's has just spent 2 months in the attics of Earl Spencer's country house Althorp, documenting some of the contents. Head of Private Collections, Orlando Rock.
The value of works of art is much, much higher than it used to be, and the cost of looking after houses are higher and higher and higher. The problem with works of art is that they may increase in capital value, but they don't produce income. The relationships that we have at Christie's and which I'm involved with are very much on a long-term basis, and so a lot of it may be that you're redoing insurance valuations, you are advising on conservation, rather than actually ringing people and saying, do you know what, I think I should come round because I think we could have a sale for you, because that doesn't tend to go down very well, I should think.
So do you spend a lot of time at collectors' houses then?
Yeah, we do. Many times we're friends and we became their advisors. But most of the time we're, the professionals who come in to help them part from a piece of their affections in the easiest way.
That's interesting, because I kind of thought, they're just gladly handing this over for loads of money, I suppose, but obviously in certain situations they're not at all.
Not at all. I mean, they grew up with these things. They're part of their memories. We have to respect that. And if we don't, then it's not a successful relationship, I would say.
I'm Brian Sewell. I'm the art critic of the London Evening Standard. And I started my professional life in the employment of Christie's as an expert on Old Master paintings and drawings. The London business in Old Masters goes back really to the beginning of the 17th century. James Christie was the first man to say, I think this needs some sort of organisation. And that was the beginning of the modern market, where the auctioneer pretends to know something about art as well as the business of selling it.
Established relationships are important, but auction houses also have to compete with each other to bring in the best works from new clients.
London is peculiarly fortunate, I think, in having 2 major houses, Christie's and Sotheby's. Christie's has always been, by tradition, run by gentlemen, quite often with titles. It's always been the house that disposes of things for the royal family, which it does with utmost secrecy. Nobody ever finds out that they bought the royal chamber pot. Sotheby's is a bit sort of noisier, a bit more flamboyant and capable of bringing off extraordinary coups de théâtre, whereas Christie's are much more consistent.
Someone who I know follows the subtleties of the art world closely is journalist Sarah Thornton.
What dictates if a sale is successful? I'd say the most important thing are the actual objects in the sale. How they're priced, how they're exhibited and marketed in the catalogue and sold on the block are all extremely important. But at the beginning and the end of the day, the object is key.
When each painting arrives at the auction house, whether it's a Water Lilies by Monet or a study by an unknown artist, the first thing the experts do is examine the piece closely. There's an element of detective work in checking that it's by the named artist, is of the right date, and that its provenance or lineage is verified. Only then can the work be put in the catalogue and presented for sale. I went down to Christie's basement to meet 2 painting experts.
I'm Paul Raisin, I'm head of the London Old Master Picture Department, and we're about to look at the pictures under studio conditions for the first time.
OK, shall we go in?
Let's.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Miranda.
Oh, Miranda, Richard Knight.
How nice to meet you. So we have a picture here on the bench. It's not very big. It has a large and beautiful frame. Shall we turn it round?
Yeah.
There's lots to be learned from the back of a picture. So we're just as interested in the backs as we are in the front.